Hey, Mike.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. I know that you have a big, family tie to Boston College where you were last week. I'm just wondering, how big was the family turnout for that game?
You know, it was rather small with about like 15. So, yeah.
Well, what was that experience like? I know that was your first time playing there, obviously with the history in your family. What was that like to have success in that kind of atmosphere?
Well, it was definitely cool. I had my uncle back with all his college roommates and buddies and all those people that I grew up hearing stories about and meeting and, kind of growing into my own as a kid. And, we walked through the stadium on Friday after our practice over at Harvard, and it was the first time that I'd gone in there and seen Matt's name and retired and number retired, and that was pretty cool. Going in there and looking up and seeing his name in the rafters up there, and just kind of brings you back full circle of when I was a kid and who I looked up to and why I do what I do, and obviously to make my family proud, and it was cool to play against Matt's school, talk a little smack back and forth with him and his wife who had played basketball there, and obviously my uncle as well, and it was a cool experience, and definitely glad that we came out on the winning side.
I know you mentioned your uncle who was a QB at Boston College, so was he wearing BC stuff or Notre Dame stuff for that game? You
know what? I was actually kind of pissed at him because he showed up to give me a hug after the game wearing a BC hat. So, one of those things that you got to stay loyal to who you are, I guess. And no, it was a good joke.
Thanks.
Mike, what's the best, other than getting a win, what's the best part of playing on the road?
It's just kind of a different atmosphere. The first two games you get, obviously, as big as it's been here for this season, specifically our new stadium, all the new things, bells and whistles that we got going on over there, and the second game was obviously as big as it's going to get here. But it's a new atmosphere. It's a change of scenery. Just cool beating people at their own place, and you kind of get a feel of it's just one of those things. It's just good to win in college football in general, and winning on the road, it definitely provides a different bit of a challenge, but and so I guess it makes it a little bit more gratifying in that way, but other than that, there's not really much to it.
How do you approach a road game like this weekend where you just have no reference of Michigan State? You've never been there, you've never played there.
Well, we've played places like there. It's not like we haven't played in loud stadiums or haven't been to a loud stadium before. I've been to the Big House, Doak Campbell down in Florida State and Clemson, and I played in that game. So, I've got experience playing in a crowd like that, and we're working on it. We've been working on it since camp started. We knew we were going to have to go on the road and play some teams that we're probably not going to be able to hear too well. But other than that, you just wait for the silent count, wait for the calls to come in as best as they can, and other than that, you just got to go play football.
Mike, what do you remember about last year's Michigan State game here, and where that might come into effect Saturday night up there as far as them defensively?
Well, the same coaching staff, not all the same players, but there's some guys back from their team. Michigan State does what they do, and they do it very, very well, and they've done it very well for a great period of time. And Coach D'Antonio and his staff up there have done a great job in knowing who they are and sticking to what they do, and they know that they can work on that as best as they can and be better at it than you can be blocking it or playing against it. And they've had a lot of success over the years doing that, and it's going to be a lot of the same things as last year that we've seen. Obviously, they're going to have some new wrinkles for us because they're not going to just sit there and do the same exact things that they've done, but we know what we're going to expect from Michigan State. They know what they're going to expect from us. We played them numerous times since I've been here. I think this is the third matchup, and 4 out of the last 6. So we got a long history rivalry with them. They know us, we know them, and that's what it's going to be.
Mike, we spoke with Coach Kelly yesterday about the running game specifically, the various aspects of the running game, what works against certain fronts, et cetera. And everybody has their favorite portion, I guess, of the playbook. What is yours?
My favorite?
Yes.
When I get to clean up a guy that Q Nelson has already set up for me. That's pretty easy. So that's definitely my favorite. Just any combination block I get with Q is normally normally a pretty good one, and he makes my job a lot easier. And it's a lot of fun to just be able to come off the ball with reckless abandon.
Over the course of 60 minutes against BC, I think as a whole, your team's stamina and improved strength started to show itself. Do you feel that individually, that as you get into the fourth quarter, you feel better or different than you did previously?
Absolutely. And, you know, with games, it's actually a lot easier than it is throughout the week, because with games, we get breathers when the defense goes onto the field. And in the week, we're just going back to back to back. So we're still keeping up with our football conditioning in that aspect every week. But, yeah, absolutely feel strong, feel conditioned, and feel just, you know, ready to go snap by snap for 4 quarters, and it's a big bonus for us this year, and getting Coach Bayless and his staff, and our team certainly was able to utilize that in the fourth quarter against Boston College, and we got, you know, 9 more games here so far, so we can hopefully continue that trend as we go for the rest of the season.
You're likely going up against a defensive end that is a former walk-on. Do you allow that to be any part of your psyche going into a game, whether, you know, positively, or do you just eliminate that from your thought process and just do what you're supposed to do?
I didn't even know that, to be honest with you. But you know, he's out there. If he's starting for Michigan State, he's probably a damn good football player. And no matter who the guy is, whether it's a Harold Landry from Boston College or, you know, the Little Sisters of the Poor, I'm still going to be able to. I still have to do my job to the best of my ability. And going out week to week, day in and day out, you got to prepare like you're playing the best player on your schedule every single day. That's what playing O-line's about. You know, you always look at yourself first, and then you look at the defense for what they do and what they're going to bring. But other than that, you're in control of everything. And if you don't practice that way, as if I'm going to if I'm not practicing to get the All-American or the first team All-Pro, then I'm probably not doing my job the right way.
Speaking of Landry, he had 1 tackle, wasn't credited with a pressure, let alone a sack. Your assessment of how you guys, the game plan going into the game for him, and how you executed it?
Well, I really can't take a whole lot of credit for it. I saw him in the first and second downs, majority run game. I had a couple pass pro snaps on him, but it wasn't an obvious pass. You got to give all the credit in the world to Tommy Kramer and Rob Hainsey. The two of them, you know, came out. Odds against them. First, the two of them with their 3rd game playing each, and getting the NCAA sack leader across from them and on obvious pass is a pretty daunting task. And the two of them stepped up in a big way, got their jobs done. They trusted the technique, they trusted their coaching, and you know, they trusted themselves. And you got to be really, really proud of them for that. And I know I was, you know, going back and watching the film with them on Sunday, and then obviously more throughout the week. The two of them stepped up in a huge way. And I guess, I don't know if you want to call it negating Landry, but the two of them were largely responsible for that.
They did get a little bit of help, so I mean the scheme.
But it was them. Yeah, they absolutely got help. They got some chips from the running back, the tight end. The slides were, you know, obviously going to the best player on their defense. But for the most part, when you go back and watch the film, it was Tom and Rob that really stepped up in a big way and got their hands on them when they needed to get their hands on them, and stayed in front of them as long as they could, and gave Brandon enough time to make some throws out there.
Going into the game, did you anticipate that you weren't going to be head-to-head with him on, you know, passing downs, 3rd down?
I didn't really know. I didn't really know what was. I knew the year prior, majority of his snaps came from the left defensive end side, but he had mixed it up in the first 2 games, and we weren't really sure what we were going to see. I knew that probably in the obvious situations like 3rd and long, that when they knew we were going to throw the ball, he probably wasn't going to be on my side just because of the way they lined up on their defense. And but you know, you got to, like I said, you got to prepare like you're playing the best player in your schedule every week. And I guess he's probably in the top of that category for the 12 games that we got.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, what are some obvious and maybe not so obvious ways that you've noticed just the defense improving over the last 3 weeks?
Well, obvious, they haven't let up as many points, so that's always definitely helpful. But you know, the not so obvious ways you've seen since January. I think I've said this multiple times. I was expecting great things out of our defense coming up this season, and a lot of people were not. And the way that they've worked since we got back here in January, since the end of last season, you knew that there was something that was going to be better. And it's the way that they come to work, the kind of guys that they are, and the trust that they have in our new staff over there. And the staff and the players have worked tremendously hard to get in sync, to get in unison, and prepare the right way, and have great game plans for our opponents. And the players, for the most part, have executed those game plans. And can't be proud of our defense and the way that they've stepped up. They've kept us in games the entire time we've been, the entire season so far. And I only expect more of that to come from them and the group that they have over there.
Is there an example you can give that, I don't know if you noticed during a game or even in practice, where you see one of your teammates make a play and you're like, that would not have happened last year?
Well, I think that we went over it in our team meeting on Monday. You know, it was a 14-13 game at half, or 14, was it 14-10 or 14-13 at halftime against Boston College. And, you know, typically in situations like that, we went third and out a bunch of times against BC to start the half or to end the half, and didn't get points when we wanted to get points, and stalled drives. And a lot of times last year that didn't really equate to good things for Notre Dame. And our defense stepped up, whether it be Sean Crawford with his turnovers that he created, whether it be Julian Aquara, Dalen Hayes, Jay Hayes with a sack, or the middle guys like Niles, Tavon, and the four interior linemen like Myron had a huge play on a 4th and 1 stop that comes out of a true freshman 3 technique that you kind of just sit there and say, okay, we got something going here. And you know, it's one of those things that you're really pleased to see, and really happy for those guys, because they've put in that work, and it's finally starting to pay off a little bit.
Mike, I was just curious, like in your career, how you learned to deal with nerves, jitters, like the mental side of things, and not necessarily just like overcoming a mistake, but just like big stages, hostile crowds, all that kind of stuff. When did you get comfortable with that?
I don't even know if I am, to be honest with you. You know, you always have those pregame jitters. Like it doesn't matter who the opponent is, whether it be Temple, Georgia, Boston College, or Michigan State going up there. You always have that pregame, or that Thursday night, Friday, Saturday morning kind of like, okay, we're getting ready to play a football game again. And I don't know. I guess I deal with it okay, because I can go out and play. But you know, you never really get rid of that emotion. You can't really. It's just about, I guess, learning to put it aside and learning how to focus on what you really need to control, and that's your job, blocking everything else out, and then the more you get into the game, the more the nerves start to settle down. You know, that first drive, you always feel a little antsy, a little something extra behind it, and then as soon as you get that first hit on your body, like as an offensive lineman, or a first catch as a receiver or something like that, you know, it kind of starts settling down for you. And it's definitely a nervousness. It's definitely excitement that you deal with from you know, Thursday on. It starts to build up even more. But the way you got to control it, and the way that I've learned to control it, is just through, you know, preparing the best that you can, and knowing that you've done everything that you can throughout the week to make sure that you're going to be okay on Saturday, or not just okay, but, you know, thrive on Saturday. So that's kind of where it's in the preparation, and then just by focusing on the smallest things that you can focus on, and then that kind of takes care of itself.
It's that sort of in context with Brandon, because he's got a lot more to look at and process every play. How do you think he's dealt with that as a captain? How do you try to help him the best that you can as an offensive lineman, aside from the blocking part of it?
You know, I try not to involve myself too much with how guys deal with what they're dealing with, you know, especially with the quarterback. He's got so many voices in his head, and not in his head, but in his ear on our football team, that he doesn't need mine. And Brandon has done a great job with leading our football team. You know, when things haven't gone his way, his demeanor is flawless. And, you know, he's just one of those kids that you love being around, and especially in times like that. I mean, you know, he certainly had his lumps on Saturday in the first half, and then took over the football game. You know, so it's just one of those. He's just one of those guys that he's in full control at all times, and I don't need to say anything to him. In fact, more of the time it's him saying something to me to calm down than it is me to him.
Mike up here. This is the last game in probably a while for Notre Dame and Michigan State. There's no future game scheduled. Is this a series that you think Notre Dame should try and continue and find a place for it? And if so, why?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, all the big rivalry games and the trophy games that we have are so important to our tradition and what Notre Dame is and who those other programs are. You know, like I said, as an offensive lineman, I love playing against Michigan State. I love the kind of game that it is. It's always the toughest game, one of the toughest games, one of the biggest fist fights that you're going to have to be in, just because of the way they play and who they are as a team. And you know, it's just something that you don't like to see fade away. You want that kind of a game and that kind of an atmosphere and that kind of attention to continue. It's good for the programs. It's good for the sport. You know, it's just good for you as a player individually. You get to be able to, you know, have these kinds of experiences. But I mean, whatever scheduling happens is not my call. It's way above my pay grade. And Notre Dame gets the best of the best every year. And no matter who we're playing, it's going to be a good year.
How does a night game on the road differ from a day game on the road or a night game at home?
I guess it gives a lot of opposing fans a lot more time to drink, so maybe it makes it a little more challenging, a little more rowdy because of that. But you know, it's challenging. Michigan State's one of those schools it's just a huge fan base, Big Ten school. Rowdy group, you know, and their team reflects it, and it's a lot of fun to be able to go on the true test that I ever had was Clemson in my junior year. I saw what Florida State was like. I saw what the Big House was like, and going there, it just provides a lot more of a different type of feel and a different type of emotion that, you know, is injected into the game just from the crowd, and it makes it more fun. It makes it a little bit more distracting if you let it, but you know, you never have a lack of energy, and that's for sure.